Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is David at David Dawei, and I am with Greg from Silver Liberties.
How's it going?
Going well, going well. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too, man.
And we haven't done one of these official ones since, well, 8 months, 9 months.
Well, yeah, we did that. Well, you sent me that video we did in September, right? I think was probably
That
our
was the last one. We did two videos in September. We've chatted between, but we haven't done a record.
And in all honesty, it's hard to kind of talk about yourself, but that video that we did, I think there's a ton of nuggets in that. You sent that to me, and I kind of forgot about doing it. And I went for a walk with my dog and re-listened to the whole thing. I was like, there's actually a lot of nuggets in here. Now, granted, I'm probably biased because it's you and I doing it, but we basically nailed it. In that video, I said we could probably see one more move higher in the stock market and then expect some intense selling. That was in September. We topped out in November, and here we are.
Well, I try to do videos with you. Number one, you've become a friend, and
I like talking to you.
And I enjoy talking with you.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I think, and yeah, I'm biased as well because I subscribe to you. But I think that the last couple of years, Dan and I have tried to put out information that will help people, right? Not rip people off, not screw people over, but try to offer them solutions that will help them make this transition. And I think that it's very obvious to me that you have skills that can help people understand something that they might not understand. And I think more important than ever, because banks pay such crap rates.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with your cash today? You almost have to go in the markets, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, not the Fed actually. I mean, the Fed calls that a wealth effect. I mean, they've lowered interest rates so badly. To your point, I don't know. I don't save in cash really at all anymore, other than like a couple months worth of expenses. I don't even have a savings account. My entire life, I've always had a savings account. I just have a checking account now. And I don't know what savings accounts are at, but were they like 1%? So if you look at the stated Federal Reserve, what I deem to be a false inflation number, their CPI is around 8.5. You're getting 1% just using their numbers. Every year, you're going to get 7% more poor at current rates. And real interest rates, which I think you and I are more in line with, is much higher than 8%. I don't know where it is exactly, depending on who you talk to. It's somewhere between like 12 and 20.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's 20%. I mean,
everything
is going up in the supermarket.
If you look at housing, which for many years does a good job of kind of tracking inflation, most areas it's up 10 to 20%. So to say it's only 7 to 8%, I think is disingenuous. And it doesn't matter. Either one of those indicators that you use, if you keep saving your paper dollars in the banking system, you're going to become more poor every single year. Unless you keep hearing about all this like wage spiral stuff, your wage is keeping up with inflation, which I know just in my own personal world, my family members, my wife got a huge raise of $1. She makes about $55 an hour. She got $1.60. That's not, you know what I mean? It's absolutely nothing. My brother-in-law, however, he works at a large company, John Deere. He got a 24% raise. Now he's an engineer.
Did they settle their strike?
They did, and they paid out. They paid everybody out. I'm not surprised because they're setting record profits. But he got a bump that was in line with inflation, probably a little bit above, like 24%. But I don't think the average person, if real inflation is say 18%, is getting a 24% raise. So he's one of the few people that I know got that, and I seriously doubt he gets 24% again next year, if anything.
Yeah, this is the problem, is that I mean, how can you make good decisions when you don't get good information, right? And when all of these government statistics are lies, it's almost like it in many ways we almost have to gamble with.
Well, no, I think you're right. I believe it was Mark Twain who said, if you read the news, meaning like the newspaper or whatever in his day, you're misinformed. If you don't read it, then you're uninformed. And I've always kind of believe that it's better to be uninformed, because then I can come to my own conclusions, even if they're wrong, versus being misinformed because you're being distracted and it becomes much more difficult to get to the truth. So, I mean, you started this interview talking about how we're trying to help people. And I really believe that the stuff that we've been talking about, I've been talking about it, and I've been putting stuff on YouTube now for over 10 years. That what we're being told, I'm not necessarily sure it's a lie. I would say it's a potential mistruth, or has a form of truth to it. It's not just like blatant straight lies. But I think most people are now waking up to the fact that inflation is much higher than they're telling us. Now, I don't think that the average person understands why or the mechanisms that make that happen. It's not Russia. It's not Putin, because it's been around for a while now. But I do believe people are waking up to it. And I think you use the example of food. So unless you have a butler or someone that does all your shopping for you, most people can see that hamburgers have gone up like 40% in the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and a lot of products you can't even get now. So it's not even a question of double or triple the price. It's unavailable.
Actually, yeah. So I bought some of these like long storage eggs. I'm sure you've been following the bird flu that's going on. They've killed millions of chickens in Iowa. And I purchased a few of these cans. They're like I don't know, they're like, yay big. They're a couple pounds worth of food in them. They last 25 years. I purchased some on April 4th from Amazon. They went out of stock on my purchase. And they are now, I paid $33 a can. I think Amazon has them at 47. And if you go on eBay, the cheapest you can find is about 65 or 70. So, I mean, you're seeing a doubling in a month's time.
Well, you almost have to think that when you start thinking about where you put your cash, you're not thinking about Amazon or Google anymore, or even silver or gold. You're thinking eggs and oatmeal.
I think some people will. Yeah. I mean, personally, of those three, I'd rather have gold and silver or eggs than Amazon. Amazon would be the very last thing I would put in there. And you being a member of my Patreon, what did I say in December? That the market, specifically tech, would get wrecked. And that's exactly what we seen. And it makes sense. Like, if inflation is coming up, you don't need to buy garbage off of Amazon. Right, you're more apt to go and buy some food, or maybe you buy land to grow food, or which billionaires have been doing for the better part of the last 10 years. They've been buying up. Bill Gates, being an example, has bought up. I believe he's one of the largest landowners now in the U.S. He's been buying up farmland for a while. He knows what's coming.
Yeah, and just for people who are listening, who are not members of the Patreon, at the beginning of the year, Greg put together a chart on where he thought the stock market was going to go. And to say that he's been accurate is, I think we're going to have to change your name to Nostradamus.
Let's not go that far. But I mean, I'm literally the worst salesman ever, but I am having one of the best years I've ever had to a start of a year, just because everybody just thinks that perpetual growth will continue forever. And it's not found in nature. It's really just found in finance. And it's, I think it's coming to an end.
Yeah. And I mean, for those folks out there, pay the $20 and you get access to Greg's information. And correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but you have several seminars on there. You have the chart that I just referenced, so people can see where the rest of the year is going to go. And you focus on not just silver and gold, even though you name silver and Liberties. You basically cover the broad stock markets as well as commodities. And
yeah, I tried to. Yeah, well, I'm doing a video today on, when we're done, I'm going to try to do a video on currencies. Yeah, I trade everything. I have an interest in commodities because they're real things. And yeah, I do have a bunch of seminars, and what you're referencing there is a forecast I put together in December that's been hyper accurate. But I think what I do versus what other people do, at least with my services, I try to teach the why behind it. So I put out a forecast. Yeah, it's been highly accurate, but I teach you the why so that you can do it on your own next year, because I may not be around. And I think, and ultimately what I'm doing, it's unlike a lot of capitalism where, people don't give away their actual information. I want people to learn, like you said. And if you can learn this stuff, if you lose your job and stuff gets really weird, assuming markets still remain open, at least you have the ability to maybe make some income. So it can lower your stress level. And that's how I've always treated training. It's not 100% of my income. I have a full-time job. It's about a third of my income for the most of my adult life, but something I enjoy doing. And if nothing else, you can use it just to go on cool vacations and stuff.
Right, absolutely. And it depends on the person. I mean, for example, out of all the people who are Patreons in your group, not everybody participates as actively as me. There are certain people, right, and there are certain people who do participate actively, and they're trying to either learn or explore these topics, in a group setting, because a lot of times discussing it with a group, you come up with the answer that you're not getting by yourself.
Well, I mean, and it's not like it's just unique to our Patreon group. Any group that you join, I think, can do that if you have like-minded people. I will say that our group, I think, as far as finance is concerned, is very intelligent. I mean, I learned from you guys as well. So yeah, I might throw something out there, or I'm kind of the ringleader or whatnot, but I listen to what you guys are saying, and you guys ask me questions where it takes my mind into places I never would have gone on my own. And why not have 30 to 50 like-minded people all trying to search out for the answer? That's what I've been saying for years too. Traders, I believe, are the last bastion of actual truth seekers, because we are incentivized to get as close to the truth as we can, because when we get that close, we tend to make more money. So I don't really watch mainstream media and stuff. I get a lot of my news from fund managers, etc., because those guys are incentivized to try to find the truth.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are still buying the dips right now out in the general public.
Sure.
And I think this past week did you see that photo I sent from the First Majestic website? It had the price of silver at 0.
Oh yeah.
Something out there. Every so often we get this ping where something breaks, like what happened to volatility in March. And
yes,
and you could see
in my VIX position. Yeah,
you could see it with the Russian ruble. When they reset the ruble to gold and oil, the ruble is now stronger than it was against the dollar than before the conflict. And I think that a lot of people are starting to get margin calls as well. I think a lot of people are finding out that their liquidity is being challenged.
No, that's really interesting. So this is a great example. You and I did not discuss this before. You're just asking me questions as we're going. This is where like-minded people, I think, get closer to the truth. So it's hilarious that you're saying that, because I was just talking to Tim, my brother. He's the other part of the Patreon group, and we were talking about Kathy Wood's ARK fund. Now, I didn't look at the close, but as of, the Friday or Monday, it was about down around 70%. Okay. So my brother's going like, does it just go bust? Now my brother, he does more high level stuff. He doesn't do as much trading as I do. But I said, look, a lot of funds have redemption windows. I don't know what theirs is, whether it's at the quarter or, 1 or 2 times a year. If you're sitting in her fund and you're down 70%, you're going to keep your money in there with her. Because, you and I could easily lose 70% on our own and not have to pay a management fee. I have a feeling she's going to see all kinds of redemptions. Then her fund could very easily go bust. Now, she's not going to get a margin call necessarily, but her fund could blow up. And I don't know that it will, but I think it's going to be harder for her to.
And she's continuing to press the pedal to the metal too.
Yeah, and that's fairly typical of just human nature. I'm not necessarily above that. If she has a thesis and an idea and it's made her millions of dollars and it's worked for the last few years, why would you think that all of a sudden it would change? But the Federal Reserve, just talking about raising interest rates, all they have done is raise it 0.25%, because they started talking about it before they did it. And the stock market topped in November. And it's not, I think the NASDAQ was down as much as 22, 23% until this most recent this week, where it just kind of goes straight up. Like the QQQs will go up $9, $10 in a day on no news.
Well, here's the other thing. Over the last 2 years, or longer. And you tell me if you agree with this statement. Really, the fangs have carried the stock market.
Oh yeah. I mean, no, you're not wrong there at all. And I don't have the data in front of me, but I've done videos and stuff on that in the past where the FANG stocks are responsible for something like 70 to 80% of all stock gains. And we're watching those crack. And, what I post in Patreon, one of my favorite investors, Jesse Livermore, if you're not familiar with who he is, Google him. Fantastic, amazing story. The dude made $50 million during the Great Depression. That's $50 million in Great Depression dollars. That's whatever that would be today. He says you watch the leaders, and when the leaders crack and move lower, watch out. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And the Federal Reserve is set to come out tomorrow and make it harder for tech companies to turn a profit. So I don't see why Kathy Wood would keep her foot to the floor, but maybe she knows something that I don't, and then they're going to reverse course soon. I don't know.
Right, but most retail investors have they noticed that the fangs are not, like you said, now leading the way down?
So I have a proxy in my life. I don't want to say who it is. I do talk about this person every once in a while. I love him to death. He's awful at markets though. He literally bought, he's not a trader. He's an engineer, super smart guy. He bought Tesla the week that they had that like $5 billion crazy call volume, if you remember that. And I was like, this looks like a euphoric top, people. Like this is nuts. And he got into Tesla 2 days before it topped out. And I told him it was going to go sub 900. And I don't know where it closed today, but I think Tesla is in a lot of trouble. And he has not asked me my opinion yet. So I have found when he tells me that he sells it, that will be close to the bottom. And I don't think we're there yet. And another guy, I don't really want to throw names out because I do believe this guy has done a lot of positive stuff. He's a huge YouTube channel. You probably know who I'm talking about because I post about him every once in a while. I think he's woke up a ton of people, but he's a perennial buy the dipper. He's even stated many times on his own channel in 2008, he lost all of his money. So that means he doesn't really know when to sell. And he's continuing to tell all of his followers to keep buying and to ignore anybody that says differently. So, maybe the market comes back. All the Fed has to do is go, yeah, we're just going to print money again. And the Dow could go to 100,000, but that's not what we're being told right now. And what I thought was even more interesting, I'm just going to say who it was. It's Greg Manarino. I love the guy. I think he's woke up a ton of people. But I don't take any of his trades. And I think he's wrong. And then he even referenced, and I sent this out, he referenced his friend Michael Pinto, who I do really love. And Michael Pinto thinks markets could drop 30 to 50% from here. So I thought that in real time was a perennial by the dipper going, like maybe something's a little different right now, right? Like, and I think that's right where we're at. And all the trend lines and everything that I set out in our Patreon group, I'm telling you, we're very close to a potential breakdown. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but we are very, very close. We're sitting on the precipice, and we're going to find out tomorrow what the Fed's going to do. And I think they're going to tell the world that it's hard for the middle class and everybody else to access capital. It's going to be more expensive to do so, which is a deflationary event, which brings prices down.
You think they're going 50 or 75?
All honesty, I don't care anymore.
Right.
I used to care about what they were doing. It's not capitalism to me. It's a couple dudes in suits sitting around a room that they already know the answer to and making all of us guess and tune into what is it that they're going to do. I'd rather go buy gold and silver and just not pay attention.
Plus, it's comical anyways. I mean, so even if they said they raised it a point, 1 point, I mean, okay, so you have about 15% to go, guys, before you actually make a dent in inflation.
Yeah, why is no one asking that question on when like Powell gets up his post-conference stuff? Why does nobody ask that question? Like, where's the guy going like, hey, I noticed that the CPI might be lagging real inflation. Your Fed funds rate isn't even close to CPI. Are you going to be taking it up to 8%, Mr. Powell? So should I be assuming all these homes in my area here in Colorado that are 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 that were 200,000, 300,000 a few years ago? you're telling me that the average Joe here in Colorado that makes sub 100K is going to be buying a $600,000 house at 8 to 9% interest rate, and they're going to be able to afford that? Is that what you're telling me right now, Mr. Powell? Where's that question? Doesn't exist.
In my opinion, housing is going to crater. It's going to crater.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I've had that thought since I sold my house. All I see them doing is
it's relative, but when I say crater, it's gone up 50% in 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I think it will go back to what it was 2 years ago. Or maybe,
that would make a lot of sense. Markets almost always revert back to the mean. The difference with housing, though, and again, I don't really believe what I'm saying. I'm just saying I think that it can. Is there's no reason they can't come out with a 40 or 50-year mortgage. I know for a fact that they're already doing this with people in forbearance. And forbearance was what? The government creating this thing that, from my studies, the only other time period I could find this was during the German Weimar hyperinflationary period. They had moratoriums. Outside of that, I couldn't find any other data. And I could be wrong, and maybe there's a lot of it, couldn't see it. But they convinced everybody that you didn't have to pay your mortgage or your rent to keep you from getting sick. That created a false low inventory environment while the repo market was blowing up, and they kept interest rates to the floor as they told us that you and I couldn't go and look at homes because of COVID. Well, they let BlackRock come in and buy 80,000 single family homes. That's just one fund. And there's bunches of them. And what's to stop them from doing that continually? I don't know.
Told me about Netflix, right? How they are changing the policy on people piggybacking,
sharing passwords. Yeah.
So these are signs that these companies are looking to generate revenue.
Yeah. What is their stocks doing? They're all crashing. So what's going to happen? This is where, like, what I just said with housing. It's like, I think because housing is about roughly a third of the U.S. economy. And the other portion of the economy is in the toilet, even though they tell us everything is amazing. The government does have the ability, and we've seen them do this, is the stuff I just laid out, to control the nominal price of homes. Now, I don't think that they care that no one can afford them or they might get foreclosed on, because they'll just have another fund come in and buy them up. But if tech companies are not turning a profit, their stocks are crashing, which means it's going to be harder for them to issue debt, issue shares to fund their operations that don't turn a profit. They have to constantly rely on low interest debt. You're going to see layoffs. And what I thought was really interesting, right after the Fed raised interest rates last meeting, Wells Fargo, I think this is 2 weeks now, came out and laid off 10% of its workforce in their mortgage business because the refi market is going to die.
I think it's already dead.
Right. So think of yourself as a bank, and your job is to hand out loans. And you can see that before COVID, the average American only had $400 roughly to their name, where they, to pay any type of emergency. If anything above $400, they had to go and access credit. There's less people in the workforce than COVID. I don't think that Americans somehow managed to get more money other than stimulus, which is probably run out. There's less people working. How does that support housing? It makes no sense.
Well, what about somebody maybe yourself, maybe Dan, maybe some, people out there who are renting, and all of a sudden they're having their landlords raise their rents. Well, right now the landlords are taking advantage of this opportunity in their favor. Sure. Which could change in 6 months.
Yeah, and I think it's going to. So if I finish that thought with the banks, right? Like, they can see people's credit, they can see what they make, they can see roughly what they can afford, but everything is becoming unaffordable. As of this week, I just saw a headline today. It's the least affordable housing market ever. So how do you, as a bank, continue to give loans to people that can't afford your stuff? You have to create new stuff, or you let the system collapse, and banks never lose. So I'm fully,
and it's not like
fully believe we'll see 40 and 50-year mortgages very soon.
Well, that's the only card they have, because unlike 2008, they're not giving people 80-20 loans where they give you two loans, one for 80% and one for 20. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Like you're looking around.
They can bring that back. They could bring that back.
Well, right now, all these people buying homes, they're having to put skin in the game, right? They have to put a down payment on.
No, well, you do have to put a down payment down. So I'm just kind of
not 20% down payment.
You can get an FHA loan where you put down 3.5%, and they have tons of those loans. So like everyone keeps saying with 2008, oh, it's different this time, and it always is slightly different. Yeah. But you have, I don't know what the number is, thousands and thousands of people who don't have skin in the game, especially in the last few years. So if you go in and buy a $600,000 home, you put 3% down or 3.5% down, but all of a sudden your home dumps out 20%, you're down 120K.
No brainer.
And you lose your job. You're going to stay in that home or are you just going to walk away? I don't know. So that's where with the forbearance stuff, to my knowledge and my studies, we've got millions of people still not paying in forbearance, and they're offering those people 40-year loans.
Yeah, and you have people doing these. They're quitting. I forget what they call that. The great quit or great resignation.
People are just resigning. Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
Okay,
but that makes sense too. Why people are doing that?
It makes sense.
I think so. Lot of. With inflation taking off, let me give you an example from myself here. During COVID, I've been in the health and fitness world for 16 years. I've run commercial gyms. I had all of my stuff shut down, and I was sitting at home for like 6 months. I was taking some of the money the government was throwing at us, and I was like, this sucks. I don't want to do this. And I was like, I'm going to just take this opportunity to go learn a skill. And a couple of my buddies do HVAC stuff. I was like, can I just come learn with you guys? They're like, oh yeah, sure. So they paid me garbage. I don't know what I'm doing anyway. I'm making like $20 an hour, but I have to pay a babysitter to leave my house. My babysitter wants $15 to $20 an hour. I am not going to go to work for $20 an hour when my babysitter requires 20. Why would I do that? I'm going to work to lose money if you include gas, and I have lunch that day. Like, it makes no sense. So it's easier to just resign, and then I can spend time with my kids and raise my kids but no one says it, like no one lays it out like that because people don't get paid enough to keep up with inflation.
Well, how do they pay their bills? They're not getting UBI.
Well, you have tons of people still on the government dole. Really? UBI is being rolled out in some cities. I think even last week or two, there was another city just rolled out $1,000 a month to certain income levels. So you had to be at or below. And then here in Colorado, they're instituting rent controls on trailer parks. So instead of
this can't end well. This can't end well.
Instead of fixing the problem, we're putting in more government regulations that'll exacerbate the problem, I believe. And history's riddled with stuff like this. I'm a bit of a history buff with finance stuff. So I get a lot of my thesis. How do you say theses? How do you say that? A lot of I don't know whatever the proper terminology is, or my thoughts for the future from studying the past, because things repeat constantly.